That's a really big topic. And what I'm trying to convey with that is that I want to take a little bit more of an arm's length look at what's going on in real estate. We have heard about a shifting market. We have heard about insane pricing. And I know we all have a little bit of PTSD from what happened in 2008. And so I just want to take a step back and look at real estate as an industry, and the state of real estate is how I'm going to get there. So what I want to do is take a big perspective, get a little bit smaller, and then smaller still to try and shed some light on the things that you're hearing with the news media, with clickbait articles, and all that sort of thing. So to get started, we wouldn't be starting big if it wasn't a massive number. 71.2 million. That is the number of millennials that currently live in the United States. It's the largest generation that our country has ever seen. And what are millennials doing? We are getting established in our careers, starting families, settling down. I think we all remember 10, maybe even as little as 5 years ago, the trope was millennials like a transitive lifestyle. They like dogs instead of children. They like renting. They wander less. Well, that's not true anymore, right? Open up your news feed and you'll see we're getting promotions. We are having babies, getting into our second marriages sometimes. All that puts a strain on the housing market. And so we have a generation that is coming into its own as it pertains to home ownership, right? And for a little more perspective on why that is so painful, give me just a few seconds. These are a number of homes that were built in the given decades. So in the 1970s and the 1980s, when the baby boomers were coming into their own, we had adequate housing completions in order for them to realize the American dream. 10.9 million in the 70s, 9.7 even in the tough times of 18% interest rates for 30-year mortgages. And it just continues as they grow into their wealth, right? And in the early 2000s, that's when things really went off the rails. We had a ton of new housing completions, as we all remember the McMansions of those days, and then boom, falls off a cliff. So what millennials are doing are suffering the pains of the largest generation in the world and a decades-long, less than average new home starts. Okay, so we've got generational demand and we've got decades-long strain on supply, right? Supply and demand economics is going to cause housing prices to go up, all right? Now, our numbers got a little bit smaller. Our time frames are not generational. We're getting into decades. So let me go a little bit smaller still, and we can talk about what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, and then what you're starting to hear about as we're coming out of insane rising prices and appreciation. One more second. All right, so here what we have is price in the middle. We have bargain pricing, market pricing, premium pricing, and insane pricing. Okay, and on this side we have inventory. And in order to make the point, I'm gonna go negative inventory, all right? Because as we get into a more negative inventory environment, we get into insanely low inventory. Okay, and as we come down here, we're gonna get to market inventory, which would be 6 months. 6 months supply is a balanced market for buyers and sellers to kind of be on the same playing field. And then, you know, coming out of 2008, when there were all these foreclosures and so on, we did have some bargain pricing. That's when things were selling for maybe below market value. And I don't know if those days are coming back, because we just reviewed decades-long housing starts, right? That leads to negative inventory. On this side, we have interest rates. So what we've been seeing since the pandemic started and the Fed went to 0 on the exchange rate, our mortgage rates went insanely low, okay? So the market is 6 months of balanced inventory. The market says over the same period, the last 50 years, 6.8% is kind of average for the interest rate that you might expect on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Well, we got to insane mortgage rates. If you purchased in 2021, you might have gotten as low as a 2.5% interest rate. That is insane, okay? And when that happens, people buy up all the inventory. And so the negative inventory gets up here at insane levels, right? Because we have generational demand, we have decades-long underbuilding, and now we have insanely low interest rates that feed into insane pricing. That's how that works. Now, as we watch this interest rate come down, I want to make that point, right? This is interest rates going down that feeds my little visual aid here. As the interest rates come down to more market levels, then we start to see our pricing go from insane to premium pricing. So you probably heard that our interest rates are rising. 4.5 is still a premium interest rate. Over the history of the United States, if you said, yeah, I've got a 4.5% mortgage, they'd say, wow, that's a premium. You're really doing well for yourself. It's not insane. It's not an insane 2.5, never seen it before, may not ever see it again interest rate, but it's still a premium interest rate. And over the last 2 or 3 months, we've seen it go from 2.5 to 3 to 4.5, and we got to 6.2%. I saw interest rates at 6.2 for loan origination. And as we did that, then all of a sudden, we started seeing not quite premium pricing, but maybe market pricing. And you probably saw the headlines then that the housing market just turned on its head overnight. I don't think that's true, right? Because remember, we're talking about decades long negative inventory, okay? And so since I've been in real estate, we have been at a deficit in our inventory. I've seen it as high as 4 months of inventory, never seen a balanced market of 6 months. When we were at 2.5% interest rates, go back and look at my Germantown market update from March. I think there were 18 listings on the market. That is insanely low insanely low inventory. We were talking about a half a month of inventory when the rates got to where they were. Now we're starting to see a little bit more of a balanced market. If you pulled it up right now, we just exceeded 1 month of inventory, okay? But we're gonna have to see these rates continue to trend downward to get anywhere close to a balanced market. So all this perspective is to say that if you bought at an insanely low interest rate with insanely low inventory, I don't necessarily think that we just flipped on our heads and the market has crashed like some people are wont to say, and now all of a sudden we're going to see bargain pricing. I don't see it getting to that level. Right now we're at about a month of inventory, maybe a month and a half. It depends on where you live and what you're looking for, but we're still so far away from a balanced market of 6 months of inventory, and rates are kind of volleying back and forth as well. We're now at 5.5% interest rate, which is still close to a premium interest rate if you wanted to enter the market as a buyer right now. So hopefully that sheds some perspective on the state of real estate. We'll see how this video turns out. If you want to give me a call, 901-497-5615. We can talk about your unique circumstances, and follow me at nim_Scott on Instagram. I do markets in a minute, which is a little bit more of that, 30-foot perspective versus what we did today, talking about real estate as an industry. Hope you enjoyed it. See you around.